the screams echoed through the narrow hallway of Rikers Island's main jail complex. A brawl had broken out between detainees, and correctional officers rushed to contain it. Within minutes, backup units stormed the block, and the clash was broken up with pepper spray and handcuffs. It was chaotic, violent, and all too common. But what made this moment stand out was the way the incident was reported later. This kind of violence, one officer admitted, isn't unique to Rikers, it's happening in other big city jails too. The difference is that here, it feels like the world is watching. That moment sets the stage for the comparison. Rikers Island, a sprawling 400-acre jail complex off the coast of the Bronx, houses nearly 6,000 detainees at any given time. It's been called America's most notorious jail, but is it truly worse than places like Los Angeles County Jail or Cook County Jail in Chicago? On paper, Rikers shares many similarities with these other facilities. All three are massive urban jails dealing with overcrowding, limited budgets, and high levels of violence. Cook County, for example, has faced federal scrutiny for overcrowding and the abuse of mentally ill detainees. Los Angeles County Jail has been sued multiple times over deputy brutality and inadequate medical care. Harris County Jail in Houston has made headlines for inmate deaths linked to medical neglect, but Rikers has something those jails don't: its reputation as a symbol of dysfunction. It has become a lightning rod in debates about New York's justice system. The jail has been the subject of documentaries, lawsuits, and political campaigns. Every scandal, whether it's the death of an inmate, a guard shortage, or a fight caught on camera, seems to land on the front page of the New York Times. Daily life for detainees also reflects this tension. At Rikers, inmates complain about long waits for medical care, staff shortages that keep them locked in their dorms for extended hours, and dangerous power struggles between gangs. Compare that to Los Angeles County, where detainees often cite the brutality of sheriff's deputies, or Cook County, where overcrowding forces inmates to sleep on the floor. The problems differ, but the suffering feels the same. One former detainee described his time at Rikers this way: you feel like you're part of a machine that's broken. At least in other jails, the problems are more hidden. At Rikers, it's right in your face every day. Statistically, Rikers stands out. According to public data, its incident rate for assaults on staff and detainees is higher than both Cook County and Los Angeles County. Budget shortfalls are another key issue. Despite New York City pouring billions into the Department of Correction, the cost per detainee at Rikers is one of the highest in the nation, yet the outcomes don't reflect that investment. The comparison isn't just about numbers, it's about perception. In Chicago, when violence erupts at Cook County Jail, it rarely makes national news. In Houston, the struggles at Harris County Jail are often overshadowed by the broader conversation about crime in Texas. But at Rikers, every fight, every death, every failure becomes part of a larger story about New York City itself, and this is where the tension builds. As one officer admitted in a public statement, if Rikers were in any other city, it would just be another overcrowded jail. But in New York, it's a political battlefield. Every problem here becomes a symbol for the city's larger failures. Yet behind the debates and the headlines are real people trying to survive, both the detainees and the staff. Some try to push through the violence with sheer willpower. Others collapse under the pressure. And every once in a while, an incident explodes so violently that it forces the public to look closer. The riot that shook the complex on that fall afternoon. The pepper spray lingered in the air. Officers dragged injured inmates out of the dorm. And in the middle of the chaos, a detainee collapsed, gasping for breath, his life hanging in the balance. That moment raised one chilling question: was Rikers Island's reputation as America's worst jail deserved, or was it simply a mirror reflecting the failures of jails across the country? The answer became clearer when the medical team rushed into the block that day, but what happened next would leave even the officers stunned. The medical team pushed through the cloud of pepper spray, their masks fogging as they dragged the limp detainee onto a stretcher. For a few seconds, the block went silent, the sound of heavy boots and shouted commands fading under the weight of one simple fear: was this man about to die inside Rikers Island? The officers who had rushed to contain the fight knew the truth: this wasn't the first time someone had collapsed in the chaos. And while the man's life hung in the balance, many couldn't help but think of the comparisons. At Los Angeles County Jail, detainees had collapsed from similar clashes, their stories buried in court filings. In Houston's Harris County Jail, lawsuits stacked up over inmates who didn't survive medical neglect. And yet here at Rikers, every second of this incident felt like it carried the weight of national attention. Minutes later, the stretcher was wheeled out, and the detainee was rushed to the infirmary. His condition was critical, but he lived. Still, the event left officers rattled. One whispered to another, if this happened in Cook County, no one would care. Here, it'll be on the front page tomorrow. The truth was that conditions in New York's jail mirrored a national crisis. Overcrowding. Understaffing. Violence boiling just beneath the surface. But there was something about Rikers that magnified it all. Its location, sitting on an island isolated from the rest of the city, made it feel like a world apart. Politicians used it as a symbol in their speeches. Advocates painted it as a human rights disaster. For staff and inmates, it was simply daily survival. Former detainees compared coping mechanisms. Some at Rikers said they learned to keep to themselves, avoiding trouble by hiding in plain sight. In Los Angeles, others described cliques that formed along racial lines, where survival meant picking a side. At Cook County, detainees spoke about endless court delays, where waiting for trial stretched longer than the sentence itself. The methods of survival varied, but the stress was the same, yet when the numbers were laid side by side, Rikers still carried a darker weight. Reports showed more assaults per capita, more staff calling out sick, and more suicides compared to other large jails. The atmosphere wasn't just harsh, it was toxic. Guards admitted they worked in constant fear, while detainees spoke of mental health breaking down faster inside those walls than anywhere else they had been. One officer who had transferred from another state put it bluntly, I worked in Houston for 5 years. But when I walked into Rikers, the energy was different. You could feel the tension in the air, like a spark waiting to ignite. That spark wasn't just about the inmates. On some days, it was the officers themselves who reached the breaking point. Shifts stretched too long. Pay wasn't enough. Staff shortages left whole dorms unsupervised, fueling chaos. And while New York debated whether to close Rikers altogether, the people inside were left to endure a place that felt like it was collapsing under its own weight. But the deeper question remained, was Rikers truly worse than the others, or was it simply more exposed? A place where the same national problems couldn't be hidden. That question seemed to hang in the air the night officers discovered something even more disturbing than a riot or a medical scare. During a routine search of one housing unit, they found a hidden stash, homemade weapons, cell phones, and notes hinting at a coordinated plan for violence. It was the kind of discovery that could shake any jail to its core. But at Rikers, it raised a far more terrifying possibility. If inmates here could organize under such tight security, what else was happening that no one had seen yet? And as one officer said while holding up a sharpened piece of metal, his voice heavy with dread, this is bigger than a fight. This is a war waiting to start.